In the next 30 to 60 days, one of the biggest hiring windows of the year is about to open up, and most physical therapy practice owners don't even know that it's going to occur. So I'm going to show you the unfair advantage for hiring more physical therapists during this time. So hi, my name is Dr. Robbie Woelkers. I'm a physical therapist and co-owner at Rehab CEOs. I used to own 3 locations and I sold my shares back to my partner back in 2021. And now we run an 8-figure agencies helping physical therapy practice owners grow and scale their clinics. So what we're going to do today is we're going to break this down into 3 parts. First and foremost, I'm going to show you guys who to hire and when. And some owners are going to want to get out of treatment. Some owners are going to want to create a lifestyle business. And some owners are multi-location owners that need to keep opening up either a de novo or you're doing mergers and acquisitions. So we'll go through that blueprint. Second, I'm going to show you guys what a recruitment season looks like and how to leverage it. And then third, I'm going to show you guys what a retention season looks like and how to kind of prepare for it. But more importantly, how to build your pipelines for the next recruitment season. So the reason why this is really important is that most owners that we work with and we talk to are very reactive when it comes to their hiring. They fill their location or they fill their schedules and then they lean in and say, now I need to hire. And then when they go to hire, they're competing against the market on salary and wages and benefits and offers, all the things. And typically they make it through that season empty-handed and they walk away without any new staff on their team. However, other practice owners, they understand that there's a strategy. And when you lean into it and you understand that you are competing against nobody because there's nobody there and you're able to hire people during that time frame, that is where most people win. So that is what we're going to cover today. How do we become more proactive with our hiring and recruiting and build our talent acquisition pipelines? And how do we not be reactive like 95% of the marketplace? Okay, so the first thing that I want to do here is let's go over staffing because I think it's really important to understand who do I need to hire and when. So the first thing that we're going to start out with is a solo practice owner, okay? So if you're a solo location, I'm kind of zoom in to make sure you guys could see this, right? And you're an owner who's starting your location, and we're just going to assume that you have the square footage to be able to do this. I usually tell people that anywhere between 2,000 to 2,500 square feet is ideal to be able to do the model that I'm about to show you guys. Okay. So what this is going to look like is we have an owner, and then typically what happens is an owner is able to get up to about 10K a month in revenue by themselves. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. But we play this weird game of like, you know, I'm an admin and I'm a provider and I, get people on the schedule and I fulfill. And now I got to go back here and I got to go back here. And you play this weird dance back and forth and it gets you to about 10K. Okay. Yes or yes, right? So you guys could comment and be like, that's me, right? So then what happens here is we're going to go ahead and hire an admin, patient care coordinator, office manager, whatever you want to call them, medical receptionist. But now what's going to happen is we're going to offload the admin duties and the owner is going to be able to go all in on provider and fulfillment. And typically you can get to about 20K a month with just a provider and an admin. Right. So think about it. If you're watching this video thinking about starting a location or whatever that looks like, it's like you could be making almost like 200 to 240K a year top line revenue with just you and another person. It's pretty cool, right? So then what's going to happen here is the first person that you're going to hire, and we usually see most owners get this wrong. They typically hire somebody that doesn't look like them. So if you're a chiro or a PT or an OT, whatever that is, I want this first person to look like you because I need them to be able to take some pressure off of your plate. And if you're a PT or physical therapist, we want to be able to hire a physical therapist in this position, okay? This physical therapist is going to be able to cover the majority of your payments, okay? So what I mean by that is all your fixed payments, your operating expenses, your rent, your utilities, your all that stuff, they are going to be able to cover that with what they generate revenue-wise. So the first level here is we always call that payment. It's the payment level. The second level that we have here is going to be really kind of tricky. And this is where I want to make sure that if you're at this level and you're trying to figure out who to hire next, we want to be able to hire a physical therapist and we want to be able to hire another admin. And the reason for this is one admin is able to handle about 110 visits a week by themselves. Now, if you're doing the math at home, let's say you're doing 40-minute scheduling. We have an owner, we have a PT, we have another PT, 6, 12, 18, that's 180. This admin here is not going to be able to handle that volume on their own. So this is where we call this, one of our programs is called Legacy Black. because this is like the black hole of business, because most owners kind of get to this point and kind of get stuck for an extended period of time. You have to ruthlessly push through this level. So at this level, what I want you to be able to do is you're going to hire a PT. And then as soon as you start the onboarding process for them, we're going to go ahead and turn around and hire an admin. Okay. And it's one of those things that like you just have to be aware as an owner. Your mind is going to tell you no, but this is like where you just have to borrow our belief. Okay. So this PT here is where you start to make your profit. Okay. Because now you're able to do around 40K a month in revenue with about 26K in expenses. This one here, we call this, so this is going to be your payment level. And this is going to be your profit level. Awesome. Because now you're doing about 60K in revenue with about 39K in expenses. So everything this PT makes you is going to be straight profit. Okay. So just want to make sure we're clear on that. Sorry for the mix up. Okay. So we're going to do 60K a month in profit here, or 60K a month in top line revenue, 39-ish K in expenses. So you have about like 21-ish K in profit coming through. Now remember, the owner's still heavily in treatment, but now we have a level of profit. So now who do we hire next? Okay. So I want you to audit here. Do you need to hire your admin? Do you need to hire a PT and admin? Or the next level is going to be protection. We hire another physical therapist. And we call this protection because if a provider was to leave, let's say if this provider was to leave, you're still profitable because you'll go back down a level. You'll go back down to the profit level. Okay. So what's going to happen here is this is where most clinics are able to do around 80K a month in revenue. You'll have around 52-ish K a month in expenses, right? So when we're looking at this, it's like we have an owner, admin, PT, admin, PT, and now we're gearing up to be able to remove the owner from treatment. Okay. So now we have owner, admin, PT, admin, PT. This is known as your protection level. And then finally, we're going to be able to hire on our last provider here and then potentially get the owner out of treatment. Okay. So you're still going to do 80K in revenue because even though you're bringing on this provider, we are going to remove the owner's schedule, right? So we're going to remove the owner from treatment, right? And then that still puts us right around that 52, possibly 58K in expenses. Again, we call this prosperity. And the reason for that is because the owner now has time freedom. And the owner also has financial freedom because they are your business is now making 20 grand a month in profit. You still get a salary and you have all this time back to be able to grow your location. Okay. So that is going to be the blueprint for a solo practice owner. A couple of things here that I do want to cover is, and we'll kind of draw this out just again so you guys could see it, take a little screenshot. So we got the owner. Okay. We're going to have, and I'm just going to write the labels here. We're going to have an admin. We're going to have another PT. We're going to have a PT and an admin. We're going to have another PT, and then we're going to have a PT in order to remove the owner from treatment. So what I want you guys to do is if you're a solo practice owner right now, I want you to identify where you're at and then who's your next hire. Okay. Now, for any reason, if you're like, well, what about PTAs? I'm a big fan of either 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 ratio. So I don't like bringing on PTAs until we're about here or here. Okay. Because if you bring them on any sooner, unless you're really struggling to get physical therapists, which I'm going to teach you a little bit about in a second, how to get PTs, you start to get stuck down here because you're 100% full and your PTA might only be like 70% full because we typically need 2 providers to fill a PTA schedule. So just a heads up on that. Your boy here used to have myself and 3 physical therapy assistants. So it was very difficult to be able to do anything and remove myself. So that's why we always say we want to have a PT, whatever you are, we want it to look like you. Okay. So that's why when we're looking at this thing, I want you guys to look at your current situation, figure out who is your next hire, right? And lock that in. Okay. So you guys got it. You could even comment here on this video who that person is going to be because I always like to know where we're at in business. Okay. So solo practice owners, what I want to let you guys know is that if you want to create a lifestyle business, okay, and you don't want to get out of treatment, because I'm not here to kind of push an agenda for you guys. This is a really nice window to kind of be in. Okay. And what I mean by that is like we got owner, admin, we got PT, admin, and then possibly PT. So I'm a big fan of just like, this is where you would stop if you just want to create a lifestyle business. So you want to show up, you want to treat, you want to, do your notes and go home, a little bit of management here, make some money, but not go crazy. 3 providers or, you, 2 other providers and 2 admins is a great place to stop. And the reason for that, I always tell owners, just be careful. If you remove yourself from treatment too early, well, let's just say you remove yourself from treatment and you have 3 PTs, right, and 2 admins. Well, guess what? You still want to get paid. So if we're following my 2013 rule in financials, well, now you're at 60K in revenue. However, I have to pay 4 providers worth of salaries, okay, and expenses. So you're almost at 52K in expenses. So things get really tight here if you don't have good months. So that's why I'm not a big fan of like removing people, too soon from treatment. Okay. Everybody cool with that? Solo location. Now, if you're opening up multiple locations, always assess your current. And then like if I'm opening up a location, what does that kind of look like? Okay. So if we go to a multi-location model or a non-physical therapy practice owner model, then what that's going to be is you're going to have a PT and an admin to start. We want to ruthlessly get to 2 providers and an admin as quickly as possible. Because remember, this is payment. That's profit, right? It takes 2 providers and an admin to become profitable. Then you're going to hire another PT and an admin combo. Now, you could either stop here, right? Which I don't care for because it kind of makes us a little vulnerable if we're just doing 2 provider admin clinics, because if someone leaves, we're not making money. So I like to at least get to 3 providers. But if you can get to 4 providers here and 2 admins here, that is a sweet spot. Okay. That is where we like to be, because this is basically $1 million location with about 80K in revenue and about 52K in expenses with a layer of protection if somebody was to quit. So if you have multiple locations and you're watching this video and trying to figure out who to hire next, well, figure out where you're at, not just for one location, but all of them. And then we're trying to get to the point where we have at least 3 PTs and 2 admins, or we have 4 providers and 2 administrative. Okay. So that's our hiring. So make sure you dial this in, log in. Now, before we kind of move on to the recruitment side of things, I always like to let you guys know, make sure you guys are looking at your pro forma. Okay. Pro forma basically is like your strategic plan for the year. And you want to be able to figure out, like in quarter number 1, quarter number 2, quarter number 3, quarter number 4, who do we need to hire and when? Okay. So realistically, it's just like, hey, by quarter number 2, I would love to have an extra PT. By quarter number 4, I would like to have 2 more PTs, whatever that looks like. So if you're not sitting down and trying to figure out who to hire and when, now we're kind of just playing reactive hiring. That's what we want to prevent here. We don't want to go into this thing like being more reactive. We want to be proactive. And the easiest way to be proactive is just know who you need to hire. I just showed you it, and know when to hire them. Okay. So that is going to be the key. So now what we want to do is, I told you guys, I want you guys to leverage hiring seasons here. So the coolest part about this is recruitment seasons are going to look like this. Okay. It's a big old bell curve. And what I mean by that is that this thing, specifically right around here, okay, is all going to be tied to the board exam, the NPTE. Okay. Now, the cool part about the NPTE is we know the dates. It's very predictable. Okay. So the NPTE runs about 4 times a year for physical therapists. And ultimately, you're going to have a January, April, July, and October test date. Okay. So I want you guys to remember those. And typically, they're the last week of each month. So when we're looking at this, we're going to have a January. We're going to have a April. We're going to have a July, and we are going to have an October testing. Now, I'm going to rearrange these dates here, and I'm going to put fall, and I'm going to put spring. And what this is going to look like for you guys is, in the fall, we are going to have the October test date. They're going to graduate, and then we're going to have the January test date. In the spring, you guys are going to have the April test date, and then they're going to graduate, and then they're going to have the July test. Okay. Now, why that's really important. So if you go to the PTAs, which is the PT Centralized Application Service, if you look on there how many universities there are, there's 315 plus accredited universities. And it's really important to know, when do they typically graduate, specifically for your area. Do they graduate in the fall? Do they graduate in the summer? Do they graduate in the spring? Who knows, right? So you have to understand when your universities are graduating, specifically in your area. Now, the cool part about that is you might have like 5 or 6 universities close by, and some of them graduate in the fall and some of them graduate in the spring. Awesome. or the majority of them will graduate in the spring. Right? Won't be able to leverage as much in the fall, but we'll be able to leverage here in this, the springtime. So the reason why I tell you guys this, really, really important, is understand that 20% of most universities will graduate in the fall. 80% will graduate in the spring and the summertime. 20% of the 20% will take their board exam before they graduate. 80% of the 20% will graduate and take their board exam in January. 20% of 80% will take it in April. And then 80% of the 80% will take their board exam in July. So if you guys were to look at this, right, we have fall 2020, 2080, and then we have 80-20, 80-80. When we're looking at this, so hopefully you guys could see it, the two big hiring seasons of the year are going to be January and July. More specifically, this is number 1, this is number 2, this is number 3, and this is number 4. Awesome. So if anything you want to take away from this part here is knowing when the hiring windows are. Now, here's what that looks like. Okay. So when I was little, my dad would always take me fishing, and we didn't have much, but we always went to Lackawanna State Park. We went fishing, and we would go up there on a Sunday, and we were trying to catch like largemouth bass. And the coolest part about that is my dad always said, if you know where the fish are and you know when they're there, you'll always catch a fish, as long as you bring really good bait. So we just had to have better bait than the other people. We had to know when the fish were there, and we had to know when to throw our lines. Now, the reason I tell you guys this is really cool, okay? Because there's two different types of supply, right? When we're looking at supply could be down, or supply could be up, right? So if you have PTs coming through and we're looking at supply and demand here, there's going to be seasons where the demand for PTs is really high, and there's going to be times where the demand for PTs are really low. But the inverse of that is there's going to be a time where the supply is low or the supply is high. So what most people do is there's like one big fish in the pond, and everybody's kind of dropping their hook in the water, right? I guess that's a hook, right? So everybody's dropping their hook in the water at the same time, trying to catch this one fish. Now, the other thing to understand here is we are trying to drop our one line in the water when nobody else is there, but there's all of these fish in the water, okay? So that is what we are trying to leverage here. We are trying to figure out how can we drop our line into the water when nobody else is there. So in order for us to do that, we are going to look back at that NPTE, and we know that July is one of the biggest hiring seasons of the year. So what does that mean to you guys? So let's go ahead and draw like a little bit of a bell curve here. And I want you to understand that as we're drawing this out, there's 3 parts of a hiring season, okay? So the first part, and I'll put like a line here, and I'm going to write NPTE, okay? So I want you guys to understand that as we're drawing this thing out, that 10%, right? So if we're kind of looking at this thing, 10% of the students that are going to take their board exam are going to be looking for a job before they take their board exam, okay? So these are the people that are like, hey, I'm going to hop on Indeed. I'm going to start looking for a job. Let me go ahead and post something, and if something comes up, I'll start interviewing. So think of like these people as like your type A physical therapist. Like they just want to, right? They're taking their board early, whatever that looks like. It's just like, I want to start looking for jobs, get something locked in. So those are going to be the individuals that are looking for a job before they take the NPTE. Then what's going to happen is you're going to take the NPTE. There's going to be this little bit of a window here, almost like a week. There's kind of like this little dead zone here where you take the board exam and then you got to wait till you pass. So then 40%, right, which is this big, massive thing. So like you take the NPTE, go about a week later, right? And then these are the individuals that are going to look for jobs after they pass, okay? So if you think about it, these are the folks that will take their board exam, find out if they pass, and now they're going to look for jobs, okay? So what that's going to look like here, going back to our graph, is about 40% of the people taking their board exam will fall into this window. And it usually goes, honestly, guys, for about 1 to 3 weeks after the board exam, okay? So there's like this 3-week window. And then what we're going to do is we're going to kind of encounter a downswing here, a downtrend. And then this is going to be the last 10% of folks. These individuals are going to be looking for a job after they relocate, okay? So they're going to locate somewhere. So if you're down here at a university, maybe you're going to go home. You're at a university. There you go. There's my house. You're at a university and maybe you're going to move to a new location, right? Or you're going to, move in with a fiance or girlfriend, whatever that looks like, right? Boom. So, right, you're going to relocate first and then you'll look for a job once you get there. So let me pass my board exam, let me move and then find a job. So what does this mean for you guys? Okay. So the reason why we bring this up is if we're going to go back and kind of look at our bell-shaped curve here, we need to understand that the board exam typically will fall at the end of July, right? So we'll just call it end of July here. Looking at a calendar, if I had to pull it up and look for it, I'll tell you exactly what the date is. It's usually like the week of the 22nd or 23rd. I think it's the 29th and 30th of this year, okay? So if that's being said, just know that we're going to have a hiring window opening up on 7/15. They're going to take their board exam here the last week of July. That means the week of the 3rd, they'll find out if they pass. So now all of a sudden we have 8/10 is where that big peak is going to open up all the way till about 8/24. And now all of a sudden we're going to have the relocation and this window is going to close by about 9:15. Perfect. Okay. So if you guys are looking at this thing, just kind of know that we have 7:15 all the way up until about 9:15 with a peak between 8:10 to 8:25. Boom. You guys see that? Okay. So why am I telling you this and why is this really important? The reason why I'm teaching you guys this is because most PT clinics, if you think about it, aren't full during the summertime. So they're not going to hire when they're not full. PTO, vacation, summer disruption schedules are falling apart. So if you, like our rehab CEOs, start to hire during the summertime, because if you think about it, you're going to hire them in July. They're going to do a 30-day, 60-day delayed start. By the time they get onboarded and credentialed, they can't start working for you guys until September, right? Mid-September anyways. So now when your schedules start to ramp back up. So the real savvy owners that are constantly hiring people are usually about 2 to 3 months ahead of the cycle. That way they're putting their offer in the water where there's all these fish and there's nobody else there. And they're able to just get their PTs, put them in the pipeline, be able to onboard and train them before they get busy. Okay. Now, one thing that I really want you guys to understand here when we're looking at this is there's actually 2 things in play. Kind of looks like that. Actually, I'll try it a little bit better here. Kind of looks like this. So there's a peak. And then we come over here and then there's going to be another peak. And the reason why I tell you guys this is yes, there's the NPTE exam here and we're going to run through a cycle and then we're going to get into this thing called retention season. Okay. Retention. So this is where we need to make sure that our current staff is taken care of because we don't want anybody poaching them or having them go to another location or whatever that looks like. So we want to make sure that those guys are dying. This is where we do check and connects. We do mentorship. This is where we're trying to get you, as far as skill level advancement or, career ascension. And also, if we're going to pull people away from other locations, well, we have to make sure that they're not just doing a vertical move. Like we're either ascending them into a new position. There's a higher wage or salary benefit. They have different offer enhancers that they're not getting at their current location. So in order to pull somebody away at another location, right, this is what happens during a retention season. Okay. And now that window, if we're looking at this thing, well, if this closes on 9/15, well, the next peak MPT is not going to be until the October. So this window is going to be closed for about 4 weeks, right? So there's a closure here for 4 weeks where we need to pour into our other staff or we need to know how to attract people from other locations to come and work for you. So that is going to be the difference between a retention season and a recruitment season is you're going to start to see these dips. Now, the thing that I want you guys to be aware of is, yes, like that's when the hiring peaks are. But if you think about it, what typically happens in the clinic is this, okay? So these people will start to get full from Labor Day all the way up until Christmas, right? So they'll start to get full and now all of a sudden people are full. There's demand is here, supply is low, and that's where people are going to be competing for these physical therapists. Okay. So that is one of the things that I want you guys to be aware of. That's the strategy, right? That most people aren't realizing is that we are going to hire, onboard, and train people when we're not full in anticipation to have them ready to rock and roll heading into a busy season. Okay. So if you want to learn more about techniques like this, go ahead and click on the link in the description or even in the comment section to join our upcoming provider workshop. This is just one of many strategies that we're going to teach you guys how to be able to hire more physical therapists, but more importantly, get more physical therapists in your pipeline and make sure that you're not, overspending or overpromising and underdelivering for your next physical therapist. So click on the link in the description or the comment section to be able to join our upcoming workshop to learn more of these provider strategies.